Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Lehman from Math with Mrs. Lehman. I recorded a wonderful video with my 6th period class, but the audio didn't work, so here we are again. I'm just going to quickly go through the notes and what you need to know in case you're watching this because you want to make sure you're caught up from being absent or if you're having some struggles with your homework. So the first thing that we did in class today is we actually, let me see if I move this thing. Oh, that is in my way. Anyway, I'll just go old school here. There's a, well, hold on, I was going to do something on the keyboard. Alright, so the first thing that we did is we defined a proportion. So a proportion is what we call two equivalent ratios. Alright, and then sometimes you'll hear the teachers say line equals line. Right, and what that means is we have, we have this, and then that equals, there we go, something else. So one ratio equals another, and that is what a proportion is. Let me change the font of this so it's not humongous. Alright, so that's a proportion. The next thing we talked about was equivalent ratios. And let's see, that is really big font. So they are ratios that have the same value. And that means if you were to simplify a ratio, it would end up with the same simplified form as the other ratio. So we will do a quick example of that. Ratios that have the same value. So the first thing we would do is say maybe 2/4 equals 1/2. Now when we say have the same value, they both have the same simplest form. They both simplify down to 1 to 2. All right. Another example might be 6/8 and 12/16. No, yeah, 12/16. So if we were to double 6, we'd get 12, and if we were to double 8, we would get 16. So those are equal in value. They have the same simplest form. All right, the next thing we did is we did cross multiplying to test this. So let me scroll down so I have some room. All right, so cross multiplying to test. And we used cross multiplying to see if two ratios are equivalent. So alright, so for example, we might say are the ratios 3/4 and 9/12 equivalent? And that's the question we're trying to answer. So what you do is you would set them up as a proportion. So 3/4, does that equal 9/12? So this is referred to as butterfly math sometimes by people. It's not the official term. But what that means is you draw this and it tells you what numbers you group together to multiply. So 3 times 12, we're going to test that out and see if that equals 9 times 4. All right, so we would get 36 when we multiply 3 times 12, and we also get 36 when we multiply 9 times 4. So if you get the same product for each, you would say, yes, those ratios are equal. So that's an example where they are equal. We did another example in class where we had 3/4, and we were testing, is that equal to 16 to 20? Right, so we do the whole butterfly mathing, so the next step is to do this. All right, the next step we would do is we would write 3 times 20, and we want to know, does that equal 4 times 16? So we have to do the math to figure that out. 3 times 20 is 60, and 4 times 16 is 64, so that does not equal they do not equal one another, so therefore these two are not equivalent. So 3/4 and 16 to 20 are not equivalent. And that's all we did for notes today, because we went to the next part of our module book on page 10, and we went through this example and used a tape diagram. So we have Sammy and David selling water bottles to raise money for the new football uniforms. Sammy sold 5 water bottles for every 3 water bottles David sold. That's our ratio alert. For every, together they sold 160 water bottles, and we want to know how many did each boy sell. So if we're doing a tape diagram method for this, we would say Sammy sold 1, 2, 3, 4, so 5 units of water bottles, and David sold 3 units of water bottles for every 5 that Sammy sold. So together they sold 8 units of water bottles, right? We can see that because 5 plus 3 is 8. But we know that they sold more than 8 water bottles. Together they sold 160 bottles of water. So we know that 8 units equals 160 bottles, right? So if we want to find 1 unit, you take 160 divided by 8, you're going to get 20 bottles of water for each unit. That doesn't mean they just sold 20, it means every unit here is worth 20. So we have 100 for Sammy and 60 for David. So you would write that in a sentence. Sammy sold 100 bottles of water, and David sold 60. All right, and that's what we did. In one of my classes, we actually had a chance to do a proportion to kind of show that math. So I can show you guys quickly on this video. A lot of people want to set up, you know, their proportion like this, and they want to somehow throw in the 160 here. You actually cannot do that. What you want to do is think about it, because they gave you 160 total. That's a total number. We know that the 5 water bottles for every 3 gives us a total of 8. So you want maybe your total down here, right? And then maybe one of the partial amounts, either David or Sammy's amount, up here. So, for example, we would have 8 total units, right? Or 8 water bottles if they just sold 5 and 3. And let's deal with Sammy. So Sammy sold 5. So we know this is Sammy to total, right? That's an S for Sam. And it's T for total, right? And we know that there was a total of 160. So we're going to write 160 down here with the total. And we have to look, how many times do you multiply 8 to get to 160? Well, we know that that's 20 times. So 5 times 20, that's going to give you 100. So we know Sammy, right, is 100 water bottles. And that was Sam. I'm trying to squeeze this in a tiny amount of space, but it's okay. And we know that there was a total of 160, so if you subtract out that 100, we know that the other guy, David, must have sold that amount. So 60 for David. Anyway, today we didn't get too far into this stuff. We're going to continue more tomorrow, but hopefully that helps. Tonight on your homework, really what you need to look at is doing, let me flip back, is doing this cross multiplication. All right, so this is the work that I would like to see on your paper, okay? All right, don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate everyone who already has. If you're a parent watching, please make sure you sign up for the Remind app so that you can get messages as far as the homework and whatnot. So thanks again. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.